Okay, let's talk about the ideal wife. I mean, that's a pretty loaded question, isn't it? Instead of trying to find some one-size-fits-all answer, we're going to do something different. We're going to dive deep into one very specific perspective on this. So let's get right into it.
And that perspective really boils down to this one simple question. This is the foundation for everything we're about to explore. The source we're looking at frames the entire conversation through this lens. What does a husband really want, and what does he need for his partner to build a happy life?
So you are probably wondering, where are we getting this from? Well, our source for this whole breakdown is a YouTube channel called Rituki Diary. Just to be clear, we're just unpacking the main points from their video.
All right, first things first. The very first qualities that this source points to are patience and the ability to adjust. These two things are presented as like the absolute foundation for a bride coming into a new family.
This whole idea is really anchored in the concept of sabr, which means patience. And we're not just talking about, waiting around. It's more about staying calm while you're figuring out this huge learning curve of a new family, a new home, everything. The argument here is that this kind of calm is really the bedrock for a peaceful home. And to make this point really clear, the creator actually shares a personal story. She says, hey, I couldn't even make Maggie when I got married, but now she can make biryani. And she says she didn't learn this because she was forced to, but because it was done with love. It's a great example of how a supportive place can really help you grow.
So you see how that works? That patience leads directly to adjustment. And the source really frames this as being super important for keeping the peace in the family. Because from the husband's point of view, the last thing he wants is to be stuck in the middle of fights between his wife and his family. That's why being able to adapt is seen as so valuable. Okay, so if adjusting to the whole family is the big picture, the macro level stuff, what about the day-to-day? How does this play out in the actual relationship with her partner? Well, the next big point is all about making him feel like a priority. The source paints a scene that I think a lot of people can relate to. The husband comes home, totally wiped out from a long day at work, and the argument is that what happens in just those first few moments is incredibly important. And this is where it gets really interesting. The source draws a straight line from a really simple action to a super powerful emotion. Look at the contrast here. If he sees his wife busy on her phone, he feels like, my value is less. But if she gives him her time, he feels, I am valued. It's all about making him feel like his coming home actually matters. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's really about being present. The advice is to spend that quality time together right when you reunite after a long day apart, because, that really sets the tone for the rest of the evening. Okay, so this idea of providing value and support, it leads to a really crucial distinction that the source makes. The role of a wife isn't just about, ticking boxes and doing chores. It's about building a much deeper emotional connection. The goal, as they put it, is to be a friend, not a servant. And they make this point really clear by using the Hindi words das for servant and dost for friend. See, a servant just follows orders, right? It's a formal thing. But a friend is someone you can share everything with. Your problems, your stress, the good stuff too. It's all about creating that emotional safe space. And this is so important. The point is, by being his best friend, a wife basically makes sure he has someone he can trust and talk to right there at home. And the argument goes that this stops him from having to look for that emotional support somewhere else, which, as you can imagine, could lead to a whole other set of problems. But hey, being a friend isn't always easy, right? It also means figuring out how to handle disagreements and stressful times. And that brings us to the more subtle part of this partnership, the unspoken rules of understanding and respect, especially when things get a little tough. To explain this, the source uses this really powerful metaphor. Think of a tree. The husband is described as the root of that family tree. He provides the foundation. And the wife? She's the stem, the part that supports everything and connects it all together. So what's the point of this metaphor? Well, it paints a picture of a partnership that's deeply interconnected. The key idea here is that the root can't work without the stem, and the stem can't work without the root. They have different jobs, for sure, but they are both absolutely vital. They have to work together to make the family stable and help it grow. And from that big idea, the advice gets super practical really fast. It's all about emotional intelligence, how you communicate. The source actually lays out a simple 3-step process. First, just read the room. Gauge his mood when he gets home. If he's clearly angry or stressed, the thinking is that piling on with a lecture is just not going to work. It's all about timing and using a gentle touch. And sticking with that theme, there are some definite don'ts that the source points out, things to avoid, like disrespecting him for making a mistake or lecturing him when he's already mad. And here's a big one they mention, comparing him to other husbands. That's described as something that's just deeply, deeply hurtful. So we've talked about all these behaviors, these dynamics. What does it all boil down to? At the end of the day, what are the qualities that really matter in a wife, at least according to this specific perspective?
And what's really fascinating is the clear hierarchy the source lays out. It basically separates what you could call short-term qualities from long-term ones. It suggests that things like external beauty or even being smart in a certain way, well, they're secondary. When you're talking about a lifelong partnership, the foundation is built on character. Things like having a good nature, a real understanding of your partner, and that flexibility to adjust and grow together.
So let's pull all these threads together. The picture we get of the ideal wife from the Rituki Diaries channel is this. She's a patient, understanding, and supportive companion. Someone who really prioritizes keeping the family happy and who acts as that core emotional support system for her husband. And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. From this perspective, the ultimate key to a great relationship isn't about being perfect. It's about friendship. It's about having that deep, foundational bond that's built on patience and supporting each other, no matter what. It's definitely an interesting perspective to think about.